Welcome to Rev Up Your Potential with Hilda Gan, the stories about entrepreneurs, business leaders, and HR professionals and their successes and struggles along their journey. In this podcast, we also discuss the HR challenges that people face and the tips and strategies that have helped them. If you love to learn through storytelling, join us. Welcome to our next episode with Diane O'Ball. She is my guest today, and she is the HR manager of Canada's National Ballet School, NBS. I have a passion for ballet, so I'm so looking forward to having a chat with Diane. Diane, can you just give our listeners a little bit about your background in HR, the industries you've worked at, and how you actually came to work at the National Ballet School?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks so much for inviting me to join you today. It's so nice to see you again. I have been in HR, believe it or not, for about 30 years. And wow, has that time flown by.
I don't even admit that I've been in it for 30 years, so kudos to you.
Well, I'm being real today. So I would say that my main areas of focus in HR have been program and policy development, management and employee coaching, in HR planning, and employee relations. And I have particular passions for employment law and compensation. So I have my CHRL and my CPM, which is Certified Payroll Manager. And I am working towards my CCP, which is the Certified Compensation Professional as well. So quite a wide variety. And I'm a senior level generalist, and I do like the variety. I would say I've worked in quite a few different industries, primarily distribution and manufacturing, some service, real estate, and all of that is very, very different from what I'm doing right now at Canada's National Ballet School. So HR is HR. It's very, very transferable, but the environments that we work in can be so different.
So obviously I shared that ballet is a passion of mine, and I do miss my ballet and watching it, and we're finally back to seeing ballet live again with the Ballet of Canada. And you're part of the school. The school is the training ground for many, many artists who go on to be part of National Ballet of Canada, but also around the world. You said HR has, the skills are there and they can be transferable, and that this particular field is a little bit different. How so? How is this one different from some of the others?
We have operations that run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we're open almost every day of the year, because this is home to many of our students, which means our employees are creating this home for our students. And the environment is very different. It's very artistic and creative. And so when I'm working in, say, manufacturing organization or distribution, there's very, very clear KPIs, for example, key performance indicators. So, for example, lines per hour. How many lines per hour? You're meeting your quota or you're not. For manufacturing, it's units per hour. You're meeting that or you're not. With NBS, it's very, very different. Those kinds of measurements aren't available. But the environment itself, the artistic, creative piece of it, it's beautiful. It's magnificent. And it's a very, very supportive environment and a learning environment. And then it's a wonderful, wonderful place to be.
Now, thank you for sharing that. And your passion lights up when you say that. So I've you and I've known each other for years, and so I've seen you in different industries, and I think this one I love for you because it is creative, and it has a different side to it than maybe a manufacturing does. So I'm glad to see that you're enjoying it. What made you get into HR in the first place?
Well, I went to York University and my major was psychology. And my intention at the time was to become a psychologist. And I was going to do the whole thing. I was going to do, the BA, the master's, the PhD. That was my goal. And then in my third year, I took a business course and fell in love. And I thought, wow, okay, so how do I marry these two, the people and the business? And I did some research and came up with HR. And I started phoning HR professionals and asking them, just randomly choosing people I didn't even know and asking, how did you get into HR and what is the career path and what can you do with HR and whatnot? And then I started looking into programs, post-diploma programs and post-degree programs. So then I went to Seneca because now that I had my degree, I was able to take a 1-year program at Seneca. And it was rigorous and intense. But I'm very, very grateful to York University and Seneca for such a great, great education that has given me this really rewarding career.
See, you're sharing a side of our profession that people don't usually think about. People think, oh yeah, HR people, they're there for the anniversary parties or
Mm,
Christmas or holiday season parties. And then they're there to terminate people or talk about things. So I mean, it surprised me because I know what I think about what HR is supposed to do. And when people told me what they think we do, I go, really? Really?
yeah, it's
So
true.
you're talking now about the education piece. Share some of the things that you find are valuable to organizations from that people side of the business, because I think a lot of people, entrepreneurs, small businesses, not-for-profits, and even large organizations think that HR is something you just have to have, but they don't understand the value. So share with us, what does an HR person do and add value to an organization?
Well, as a generalist, I can talk about all the different areas of focus that we have. So, for example, health and safety. We keep our employees safe. They go home at the end of the day to their families, and HR is a big part of that. There's compliance in employment law. We help ensure that organizations are abiding by the law and treating the employees in a way that is compliant with legislation, which also keeps the court cases away. um, there's engagement, and so that ties into retention as well, turnover rates. We help to keep the employees happy and engaged in their jobs. There's development, training and development. So you know how people used to say, there was a saying many years ago, people don't leave jobs, they leave managers.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm seeing now when I'm recruiting and when I'm doing exit interviews, I don't think that's so much the case anymore. Sure, sometimes, but I would say the most pressing reason why people are leaving jobs now is for career development. So HR professionals help to determine how do employees want to develop their careers? In what avenue do they want to go? And then help support managers to support their employees on how to get there. And that in turn creates the engagement as well.
I know there's a shift now from performance, like performance annual reviews, to more performance development reviews, where again, as you say, the shift is more, how do you help a person foster their career versus tell them what they didn't do well and what are their strengths and weaknesses and work on their weaknesses. And now it's really about helping people find their passion and building on that passion so that they really find a place for themselves in the career. If it's within the organization, great, but if it isn't, then how do we do that? But yeah, that's the. You talked about the fact that you're a generalist, and some people choose to specialize. And I know you're getting your compensation designation, and you're getting your payroll you've gotten your payroll designation. And the point is that some people choose to have a passion in one area, and we'll focus on that. But I too, like you, was a generalist. I love to do a variety of things, and I think it makes for a much more well-rounded professional who really understands all of the pieces of the puzzle that HR brings to the table. You talked earlier when we were offline about some of those things that have been a success in your journey and a struggle. What would be, share with what one of those would be with the listeners?
I've got a really strong background in startup cleanup kind of environments. So it's so exciting to be part of a startup environment. I had one company, I worked at one company where I was literally employee number one. I was the first person.
I mean, kudos to them for saying, hey, the first person we hire should be an HR person. I think that's great. I think that's great.
Exactly. And how often do you get to be employee number one? Not very often, especially in HR, as you're saying. But there's been many organizations where I've been in a startup role, and it's so rewarding because it's like a big project, and you get to see every step of it from start to finish, and you can imagine it the way you see it, the way it's supposed to be. You get to envision that and then implement it, and it's just so rewarding when you see employees commenting on, wow, this is a really great benefits package, and you're thinking, yeah, I wrote it.
Exactly. Yeah, lots of fruits of that. I remember. I love startups too, and that's part of what I do is I really help startups. And I think when I talk about mission, vision, and values, like every company should have one. And some business owners have difficulty making that happen. But I think you get to decide. You get to decide what you want your mission, vision, and values are. And you get to decide to hire people who align with those.
Yeah.
You get the roadmap. You make the roadmap. And that's the kind of the beauty, rather than inheriting something that you have to try to change and evolve, for sure. You also said that being part of a startup also has its struggles. So share with us the opposite end of the coin here.
Well, the opposite side of that is the instability. Because once you have everything in place, then it's like building a house. The house has been built, and many organizations see it as the job's complete. Thanks very much. We don't need you anymore. And so there's that instability that can come with startup. Or there's also the risk of, okay, the startup didn't work the way we wanted it to, and so now we're shutting down operations, or we're going to go in a different direction. And so there's that piece that is unstable to it.
So that happened to you, I guess.
I've been in transition from a startup environment, and And being in transition is really, really very emotionally difficult.
Yeah. I mean, you and I have been on that side where we've had to terminate people uh, in our lives, but being on that side where you now are one of those that really is difficult. I can imagine.
It is, but I have to say it has changed my approach to being the one who is part of that difficult decision making process, because it's made it more human, more real, because you know the impact that this has on someone.
Yeah.
I did actually, if I may, I'll share
Sure.
a story with you about someone. I made the difficult decision to recommend um, a releasing an employee from an organization, and years later, I ran into that person who ended up thanking me, and she said, "I wasn't right for that role, and I didn't know it, but you did. You saw it. And now I'm in a much better place. I'm working in an environment that suits me, and I'm really feeling good about the job that I do. And through that job, I met my husband, and we're having a baby." And I was thinking, oh my goodness,
Oh,
what a beautiful story. So yes, in the moment it feels horrible regardless of which side of the table
yeah,
you're sitting
yeah,
on,
yeah.
but in the end it's the right decision for all parties.
And thanks, Diane, for sharing that, because I think sometimes you don't know what life will hold. And for some people, that that decision that is made for them turns out to be the right thing, because then when they pause and reflect, they realize that this wasn't the place for me, or this wasn't the job for me, and then they find something and they're so glad. I think if anything this year or these past 2 years, COVID, I remember doing a webinar, and I'm all about culture, and I want to create um, positive work cultures. And I remember doing this webinar that says, if you have a culture that's less than desirable, now's the time to change. When we come out of COVID, you know, if you started changing it, people will be better off with you and want to stay. If
Yeah.
you play if you play it right. And one thing that I didn't recognize was that we would be off for 2 years. Who would ever thought that? And that in those 2 years, not only did we learn about how to work remotely, we started to think about us and ourselves and our needs. And suddenly we think, even though this is a good place, or maybe not a good place, this isn't the place for me. This is not the job I want to be in. I have a passion for doing this, and I know I can be resilient now, and I'm going to try. So I think this was a big surprise for many, many people during the years. But thank you very much for sharing that particular anecdote. I always say that the day that you you're okay with terminating somebody is the day you've lost your humanity, because there's a person behind that decision with a family and responsibilities and emotions. So I always support the managers when we go in together and share the decision that needs to be made. So
Yeah, it is really tough.
yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I know it's the part of the job people recognize that we do, but it's not the only part, and it is the toughest part of the job for everybody: the managers, ourselves, the organization, and the individual that is the recipient of the decision that's been made. Share with us a piece of advice that you would give to entrepreneurs or HR leaders that would help them with their career or their businesses.
I would say ask a lot of questions, because through those questions we 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 build on each other's ideas and create something that's even better. and creating that safe space. We've heard a lot through the pandemic about psychological safety,
Mm-hmm.
and so creating that psychologically safe space for people to do that kind of brainstorming and collaboration. I think that is so important, and that's where magic really happens.
And and what about yourself? What advice would you give your younger self? The one that's only 5 years or 3 years into their career.
My younger self, I think I would have said to myself, take more chances. I think I would have said, um, like I feel like if I'm looking back on my career, I think I spent an awful lot of time um, in entry level positions because I was afraid to take that next step to go to more of an intermediate level. I became comfortable
Mm-hmm.
and in knowing I can succeed here, I can do this, and so I think that if I could have taken myself, 3 or 5 years into my career and said, you believe in yourself and just try it, then I would have taken a leap of faith and tried something more, um, what's the word I want to use? Something more courageous than I had.
So, when did that moment happen that you took that leap, that tiny bit of crossing into that courageous side of you? What was that catalyst, or how did that happen?
Well, I was coming back from maternity leave with my second son, and I wasn't looking forward to going back. And I thought, I need more. I just need more. And I took a chance, and I gave up a permanent position for a contract, a 6-month contract, but it was a higher level position. And I took that chance because, our life events change our perspective. And so now I have these two kids at home, and if I'm going to be away from them through the day, I want to love it. So I took that chance. I took a leap of faith, and I took a 6-month contract that was at a more senior level and that had more depth to the role. And it was a startup. And that 6-month contract turned into 8 years,
Wow.
and to a promotion to the management level, and a wonderful, wonderful experience. I loved working at that company. It was amazing. I worked with great people. My boss, I had a great deal of respect for, and we worked well together. And I'm so grateful that I took that chance.
It's very interesting because many people, having had a second child, may say, I don't have time to balance family and a career now. This is a time where I dial it back a notch and make it a little bit more predictable, a little bit more comforting and secure so that I can leave whenever. And you did the opposite. You,
I did. I did.
I mean, if any time you were going to do it, maybe it was before kids, but not after two. So kudos to you, and thank you for sharing that
Okay.
journey, because that 6-month courageous act turned into an 8-year, and you talk about wonderful and respectful, a respectful boss, a wonderful experience. So thank you very much for sharing that. I want to jump into just HR, and we've been talking HR all along, but what would you say are two of the key headaches that you see in HR today that may be helpful for those that are listening to us talk?
Two headaches. Well, the market right now. The market is a big headache.
Crazy market.
It's a crazy market. It's an employee's market. Um, and but it's not always going to be. right? So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's some things that are happening in our market right now that are a little concerning to me. Like, for example, ghosting. We've heard about ghosting, right? And it's happening all over the place.
So
I was
what do you mean by ghosting for those that don't know what that?
so ghosting is when you have an interview booked with a candidate, for example, and then the candidate just doesn't show up. There's no explanation. There's no
Okay. So
thanks so much, but I've had an offer somewhere else that I've decided to take.
and so
That
like in social media, they totally disappear. They don't contact you. Nothing. They really
gone.
ghost you. Gotcha.
They ghost you. And in fairness, I've heard it happens from the recruiter side as well. So I want to be fair here. So I think that that's not right. There's professional and personal courtesy that we all need to be aware of, and we should all be abiding by certain codes of conduct.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say the market right now, and then also in terms of the market, is attracting and retaining candidates and employees. It's, again, the market is going to change. It will stabilize and there will be a shift. It will not always be the way it is right now. So I get a little worried when I hear people leaving companies for more money somewhere else, because I think there's a chance that may dry up in not too far off, because like I said, things are going to shift again. So that's a concern that I have.
I mean, you're HR. You know how to find talent. You know where to look for talent. You know how to interview, to review a resume, and as you're interviewing, thinking about whether this is a good fit. Imagine those people that don't have that experience or knowledge, and trying to find it. But it's really tough right now. You know,
It is.
when I was doing my webinars on HR and COVID and how to help managers, I 2 years ago did not predict that the market would then be an employee's market. I felt that people might
No,
leave. People might leave because they realize that they're not in a job they want to, but they would probably go and find a job for less money. And that's not the case right now. Right now, it is hard to find people, and people are asking for a bit more money than they were making before. So it's quite an anomaly that was not predicted, not predicted for sure.
because we have learned how to work remotely.
Hmm.
It has changed the competitive market as well. So if a job can be done remotely, it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who works within the general vicinity of the organization. It
Yeah.
could be someone who works, like if the organization's here in Ontario, it could be you have a very strong, viable candidate in BC. So it does open up the market,
For sure, for sure.
and that makes
So no
makes it a
stone
lot more
unturned, we can find them anywhere.
interesting.
When you look back on the career years from now, maybe, what would you say is the legacy that you would like to leave?
That's changed for me, Hilda. It used to be, because my niche was startup, it used to be, what have I built?
Hmm.
And that was my legacy. I was very, very proud of what I had created within organizations, and still am. I would say that's changed for me in the last little while. I would say it's twofold. One is, how have I helped my organization grow and develop? How have I taken it from A to B, and made improvements along that way? How have I helped professionals grow and develop as well? The second piece would be, how have I given back? How have I supported other HR professionals in their careers. So, as I mentioned before, when I was in transition, it was very, very emotionally difficult. And I was overwhelmed by the generosity from the HR community and how much they were willing to help and how much people would rally around and just help. And I thought, okay, when I land, I'm going to give back. And I started volunteering with the HRPA, and I became a mentor, and I signed up to be a mentee. And how can I give back to the profession of HR and to the association, in particular the York Region chapter. That's my chapter, and to helping other people grow and develop in their careers. And also, how can I support others who are in transition? Because it is so scary.
Well, you can tell the psychology and the HR are all there. Diane, thank you for sharing, this part of your journey, having been part of rising through the HR to become a manager, taking courage in doing to take on more progressive roles and the outcome of that, and then to want to give back, to leave a legacy of helping others. I love what you've shared today, and I really appreciate you coming and giving your wealth of knowledge and your personal experience. What's next for you, Diane, and how can people get a hold of you?
I'm so happy at NBS. So what's next is more of the same. more NBS.
More NBS. Well, just an anecdote before we sign off. You have not experienced a National Ballet School Nutcracker event. That will be so amazing and wonderful to watch these kids practice and be part of the actual event. And you and I will have to go to a National Ballet Nutcracker together so we can sit side by side and do that. How do people get a hold of you?
I can be reached, I think probably the best way to reach out to me is through LinkedIn. Happy to receive comments and invitations to connect. And if anybody does want any help with anything, please reach out, because I'm happy to help. And HR is such a wonderful profession, and I'm so happy if you've chosen that as your career, and I'm happy to help.
Yeah, I can hear your generosity, and I hope people will take you up on your offer. Thank you very much, Diane, for being part of our day today. And I'm so delighted to have this time to talk about your career and about the National Ballet School and the generosity that you have for people in the profession and for those that you've touched. Thank you for tuning in to Rev Up Your Potential with Hilda Gan. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and Spotify to stay up to date on our latest episodes. For HR tips, news, and strategies, or if you're interested in being a guest on our podcast, visit our website at peoplebrightconsulting.com.